Welcome back to Wrestling World. For today's video, we'll be taking a look at how AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler prevented Big E from being a member of The Shield, Rey Mysterio vs. Bayley, Enzo and Big Cass, and more. So let's start things off with this big reveal from Big E. Big E is currently in the middle of a long overdue singles push over on SmackDown as the WWE Intercontinental Champion. WWE recently released a special documentary on Big E, and it was so greatly put together that it had Big E trending on Twitter. Not only was it emotional and truly showed a deeper look into the man behind Big E, it also featured some never-before-heard reveals, such as the insane reveal that there were original plans for Big E to be the fourth member of The Shield. CM Punk has told a lot of stories about the origins of The Shield. Punk claimed that it was his idea for WWE to take some of the great development talent and bring them to the main roster with the usage of this new faction. Punk selected Seth Rollins, Chris Hero, and Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley as well. WWE kept Rollins and Ambrose, but Roman Reigns was already one of their favorites back then, so they replaced Hero with Reigns. But what CM Punk or anyone else never really told us was that there was a canceled fourth member, and that was Big E. According to Big E himself, there was a version of The Shield that would have saw him joining Rollins, Ambrose, and Reigns in The Shield, and he would have been called up with them back in 2012. However, it was AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler that prevented Big E from being a part of The Shield. WWE decided that they wanted to use Big E as the enforcer for AJ Lee and Dolph Ziggler. That's what they ended up doing. Big E had this to say about what happened with The Shield's plans. My first feeling of getting called up was 2012. I was doing loops. Any collective period of days is a loop. It's Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and me. There were some thoughts of bringing all four of us together as a group. Obviously, that changes. They go on to international fame as The Shield. I was told, you're going to be with Dolph and AJ on your very first night. You're going to attack John Cena. I'm thinking, man, this is it. So that seemed to be one of the rough drafts for The Shield. It was going to be all four of them, but they trimmed it down to 3. Of course, it probably had to make Big E feel some type of way to see what The Shield turned out to be and know that he was almost a part of that. But his debut was still very memorable and impactful. He debuted by laying John Cena out, and this was right in the prime of John Cena's career. Cena was still the top guy in WWE at the time, so it was a big debut for Big E. Big E would spend a year or so of his career with Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee. They were a very impactful and underrated trio themselves. AJ Lee was at the peak and prime of her character, Dolph was winning world titles at the time, and Big E was there as the enforcer. They were a trio that definitely didn't get talked about enough. Those three were very entertaining to watch together. The pairing of WWE TV also helped Big E become close friends with AJ Lee. They still have a close friendship till this day. Big E is now doing his thing on SmackDown as the Intercontinental Champion, and the Universal title is definitely in his future as well. It was just very interesting to know that Big E was very close to debuting as a member of The Shield. What did you think was the better debut for Big E? Debuting and attacking John Cena like he did, or him debuting with The Shield? Intergender matches are very hard to come by nowadays, at least in WWE. It's not banned or anything like that, it's just extremely rare. There's only been about 2 intergender matches over the last few years in WWE. Becky Lynch vs. James Ellsworth from 2017 was one of those matches. Then we had one more recently on SmackDown, when Sasha Banks defeated Reginald. We haven't seen an intergender match since that Sasha Banks one, but a lot of superstars have been teasing intergender matches since then. Xavier Woods and Reckoning had a viral interaction on Twitter, which resulted in them accepting to face each other in an intergender match. Despite the hype for that intergender match, WWE never made Woods vs. Reckoning official. But now, we have another potential WWE intergender match on the way. Bayley took to Twitter to say that she wanted to wrestle Rey Mysterio, which resulted in a lot of fans discussing the possible matchup. Even WWE producer Shane Helms replied and said, can I produce? So it appears that not only would fans be excited for this matchup, but even some of the WWE producers want to work on this matchup as well. Will WWE actually do anything with Bayley's tweet and make that match a reality? That's what we'll have to wait on. Enzo and Cass made a surprising return to wrestling this week and went viral on wrestling Twitter. If you've been watching WWE for a few years now and watching NXT back in the day, the chances are you're familiar with Enzo and Cass. They were by far the hottest tag team in NXT. Fans loved them, and they brought the charisma that just made the crowd come alive. Carmella was even added to the group later on, and the trio was very successful and an entertaining team in NXT. Carmella was drafted to SmackDown in 2016, and Enzo and Cass would also be called up around the same time. Enzo and Cass didn't last that long in the main roster before they were broken up on Raw. Enzo went on to have some success in 205 Live, while Big Cass has a very short run as a heel. The two WWE stars would both end up running into some controversies that costed them their careers with WWE. Enzo was kicked out and reportedly banned after trying to hijack a WWE show from the crowd, and Big Cass walked away from wrestling after an incident and some dark times he was going through. As a surprise to everyone, Enzo and Cass returned at a wrestling show over the weekend, and it was a complete shock to everyone. It's the first time that Big Cass has stepped foot in the ring in such a long time. He responded on Twitter to the love he was getting from the fans. After a long journey filled with an enormous amount of self-reflection, I now start my journey towards redemption. Thank you, the Big LG, for the opportunity, and thank you to everyone for continuing to believe in me. Hashtag straight outta step 12. The fans came out to show support for Cass on that tweet, and he's officially back to pro wrestling. The big question that everyone is asking now is, will Enzo and Cass return to WWE? While reports claim that there are some people in WWE that still support Enzo and Cass strongly, but it's unknown if that will be enough to bring them back to WWE. Would you like to see Enzo and Cass return to WWE? Bobby Lashley is finally where he deserves to be in the WWE title picture. Bobby Lashley has been very vocal about wanting to face Brock Lesnar and how much of a dream match that would be for him. But Lashley is switching his tone now. He no longer seems to be that interested in the Lesnar match, at least for the time being. He had this to say when speaking with Inside the Ropes. As far as Brock is one person, but how I look at it is, Drew beat Brock in no time. Of course, my sights were set on Brock for some time. Like I say, Drew's the man. Drew beat him. Drew beat Goldberg. So, of course, Brock is the dream match that everybody has wanted me to have for some time. Right now, I'm looking to beat the best, and right now the best is Drew. Drew is the top guy. When I beat Miz, Drew is the guy. So Lashley is making it clear right there. It looks like he's seeing Drew McIntyre as his real dream matchup right now. Like he said, Drew beat Brock. He beat Goldberg. That makes Drew McIntyre the top guy that you have to beat. So could we be seeing Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley in the near future? That definitely seems like a realistic possibility, so we'll have to see. But what are your thoughts on today's wrestling stories? Leave your comments. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Follow us on Instagram at WrestlingWorldCC. Thanks for watching, guys.